Tune into a podcast made by the fans for the fans. This is the Drive for Five podcast. Welcome to the Drive for Five podcast, hosted by David Lazar.
Welcome back, everybody, to episode 3 of the Drive for Five podcast. Just like on the All Islanders podcast, in our third episode, we had a special guest coming on. We also have a special guest coming on this third episode. We have Alan Hahn. He was the Knicks beat writer. He was the Islanders beat writer. Now he's on MSG, ESPN, with Rick DiPietro and Chris Canny on an amazing show called Hahn and Humpty. And we just are so thankful to have him on. And we're going to go to Jared for the first question to ask him. We're excited for this. So, Jared, what do you have to ask?
First of all, I want to introduce myself. Hi, Mr. Hahn. How are you today? I'm Jared. So I'm going to start with the first question. So you were the Islanders beat reporter from 1999 to 2006, which basically means you were Arthur Staple of the early 2000s. What was it like to cover the team in some of those rough times back then?
It was probably well. First of all, it was a great learning experience for me because I was young then, and it was one of those opportunities that when Newsday came to me and asked me if I wanted to do it, I jumped all over it because I grew up, as a fan of the team, and I grew up during the Stanley Cup era. I mean, I was basically, between 8 and 12 years old when they were winning Stanley Cups, and so it was like, it was kind of surreal for me to meet a lot of the people. One of the first people I met was Bob Nystrom, who was my hero, like as a kid. I mean, I dreamed about, everybody wore 20, I played basketball, and everybody wore 23 for Michael Jordan. I always used to say I wanted 23 for Nystrom, and nobody knew what the hell I was talking about. They didn't even know who Bob Nystrom was, but that was my guy. And so even though the franchise had gone through, the mess that was the 90s between the Fisherman logo and Mike Milbury and John Spano and the Milsteins, just one awful ownership after another. They weren't going to be good. They were always low budget. But it was, for me, I was like thrilled to do it, just to be around that team. And so it was so much controversy and turmoil that for a writer, for a reporter, you would never, even though the team was bad, there was never a day where you didn't know what you were going to write about or talk about, because they would just, I don't know if you guys saw the 30 for 30 Big Shot, but that alone, like that whole story alone was just so, like, it felt made up the whole time. So it was interesting. And then I was lucky because in my third year, or my second year actually, is when Charles Long came in and bought the team. And that was a huge story to have, a Long Island billionaire buy the team and basically try to save the franchise, because there was a lot of talk of them moving even back then. And he had, grand plans for arena and everything else and the Lighthouse Project. And then he started investing in the team, and that's when the Alexei Yashin, Mike Pekka, and Chris Osgood, like that era really came together with Peter Laviolette as the head coach. Believe it or not, the Islanders had Peter Laviolette as the head coach. I know it's hard to believe now, right, with all the success he's had. And those were, some fun years. I mean, I know you guys are probably just 1 year old at the time, but that 2002 season where they made the playoffs for the first time in 8 years, that was probably one of the most fun seasons that I can remember for this franchise since '93, and obviously 2015 was a lot of fun around here too.
Oh, yeah.
But for me, it was just incredible to see them actually make the playoffs. The building was alive again. It was loud, and obviously the series with the Maple Leafs was so much fun. So while it was wild, it was crazy, it was so much fun. And I always look back and say I would never have had the career I've had to this date and the opportunities that have come up if not for the stories that I had to cover based on that franchise. So it was a great learning experience for a young writer.
So I'll ask the next question. First of all, Mr. Hahn, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it. And back in your era, back in 2000, in the early 2000s, the Islanders acquired Alexei Yashin in a big trade that involved the second overall pick, which was eventually Jason Spezza, also Zdeno Chara, and Bill McColt from the Senators. So as we all know, that trade did not work out very well in the Islanders' favor. So at the time of the trade, what was your reaction to it?
Well, I'll be honest with you. Like, I broke the story about the trade. Like, we knew it was going to happen. Yashin was having a contract, stalemate with the Senators at the time, and the Islanders were looking for a star player. He was an all-star player. I mean, he was that good. He was a 40-goal scorer. And he also was close with Carol Alt, who was a New York model. So there was a lot of connections, and it made a lot of sense. Now, I got to tell you guys a story about Zdeno Chara. I covered Z, I knew him when he was a teenager. They drafted him, and this is a guy who's 6'9", defenseman. That didn't make any sense. Nobody ever saw players that big before in the league. Nobody was ever that big. Mm-hmm. And so when he was a 20-year-old defenseman. I covered him when he was 19, and because he was so young, they only saw him for a couple of games. He spent most of the time in Lowell, so there wasn't really a lot to worry about. But when he came up to be a regular defenseman at the age of 20, he looked terrible. He was bad. There was a game I remember that after the game, he was sitting there, and this is before they changed the setup of the locker room. So it was from the Dynasty era. The locker room was a gigantic square locker room, and he's off in one corner, and he looked like he's just sitting there. So I went and sat next to him, and I was like, "What's going on?" And he said, "I'm totally lost. I don't know what I'm doing out there. I have no idea what I'm doing." And I remember walking out of the locker room and saying to one of their attendants, I'm like, "You guys better trade this dude because he's never going to be a good player." Wow. And then 3 years later, he's a Norris Trophy winner. So it's it just blows your mind. But it was a matter of just him going to the right situation, which happened to be in Ottawa with Jacques Martin. And, they taught him, he was in a defensive system, which was perfect for him. And he just flourished there. But I'm telling you, when he was 19 and 20 years old, he did not look like what he eventually became. You had no idea that he was going to become that until he left. He had to get out of there. So at the time, it wasn't a terrible trade. I wasn't a big fan of Spezza. I didn't think he was going to be a star. They were trying to make him out to be the next one before Crosby. He was supposed to be Crosby. He never really turned into that. So at the time, it was exactly what the franchise needed: a legit center, a star, a guy that could put up points and be a power play contributor. Long term, no, it was a total failure. Long term, they gave him a 10-year contract for $90 million, and that was the worst thing they could have done. And then eventually they gave him the captaincy, which was a big mistake too, because that's not really who he was. But the day of the trade, and I was there at the draft when they made the trade. It was in the draft that year was in Florida, in Sunrise, Florida. When they made the trade go down, the next day they got Mike Pekka in the next day's trade, which was a terrific trade as well because of what it did for the team. But at the day of the trade, it wasn't a bad trade. It was 2-3 years later when you realize, committing to this guy for 10 years was a big mistake.
Yeah, so that's a different perspective. We're glad we heard that because, we appeal, to a very young audience on our site. And it's not, adult. We have adult followers. But, a lot of people don't really see that, some of the, Milbury, everyone hates him, but, he did what he thought was best in some circumstances. I don't really think you can justify the Laviolette firing. That's unjustifiable, I feel like.
No, that one, I can tell you about that one, too, because that's one where, I was pretty close to Peter, and it was in the off-season. Peter was in Florida with his family on vacation, and I was talking with Milbury on the phone, just random stuff, and when I was talking about Peter, because I believe Peter either was due for an extension or there was something going on in Peter, and I just, it was just one of those questions you ask the reporter, you probably start negotiating with Peter, re-up with Peter, because, he was their most successful coach since Al Arbor. He was just doing a great job. And, Miller is kind of being very coy about Peter's future. And that's why I was like, are you thinking about maybe making a change? And Mike really wouldn't commit. And so I called Peter, and I'm like, Peter, it doesn't sound like they're fully committed to you. I was like, what's going on? And he's like, it's okay, don't worry about it. I'm like, what do you do you mean don't worry about it? And he just said, I know it's okay. And like 2 days later, he finally told me that they already talked about it and he was going to be out. Blew my mind. I mean, I couldn't believe that they would make such a move. And I mean, to this day, the last we're talking with Peter, we always talked about it, how his biggest regret was that he never got to stay here because he loved it here. But the one thing I'll say in Milbury's defense was that he went through so many different ownerships that they just kept changing the plan. It was always, we're going to try this, now we're going to try that. They never really spent money. So to build a team, he never really was building a team. He was managing a payroll for the most part. So, that was finally the year, 2001. They finally were able to actually spend money, go get actual, real quality players, and put together a roster that was going to be competitive. And like I said, that 2001-02 season, and I know a lot of, you guys were barely, a year old. That first month, now this is right after 9/11. We were at Lake Placid for 9/11. The whole team was up there for training camp when 9/11 happened. We come back, and the Islanders didn't lose. I think their record was 9-0-1-1 to start the season. I mean, they just were a house on fire to start, and Osgood was just playing out of mind. So it was, that was something. That was a lot of fun, and it was like, this franchise is finally back. This team's back. They have legit players, guys that are good. Kenny Janssen, Adrian Aucoin. It was kind of the rebirth, and it was good to see that, even though there's been lulls here and there, it just didn't go back to what we remember from the 90s, which was a solid 7 years of just complete, terrible hockey.
Yeah, so, I mean, thank you so much for going in depth with that. I mean, we would have never known that. That's so cool, just, as a beat writer that you have, like, I knew that, Staples, the beat writer now, I know that he has a relationship with Snow and with some of the players, but it's so cool that you, like, I mean, it really is like you're part of the team with some of the stuff that they, like, tell you, and it's like there's a mutual trust there, and that's just such a cool, I mean, it must have taught you so much about, where you are now, in the media. Like, that must have really been something for you, like, that experience.
Well, it's a big part of the job. Like, one of the biggest parts of the job, you have to actually be able to write, but you have to be able to, create a relationship, develop a relationship, develop trust, but also credibility. Like, make sure that, you're not being used, that you have a job to do. They respect that. I mean, there were times, we had ups and downs. I mean, there was a time in one season where actually when Garth Snow was still playing, where Garth led basically a revolt against me, where the players didn't talk to me. Really? And if I walked in the locker room, there was just silence until I left, and then they would talk to the rest of the media. Like, and he basically announced to everybody, one of the reporters after the game, he went, well, we all agreed not to talk until he's not here. So I had to literally walk out of the locker room.
Oh, my God.
And so that went on for about a week or so, and even during a road trip where it was real uncomfortable, because back in those days, I was the only guy that traveled with the team. So it was me and it was the TV crew. That's it. And so it got dicey. And then, to Garth's credit, he knew this couldn't last forever. And, we went to dinner, hashed it out, and, we laugh about it today, like when we see each other. But that's part, again, like I said, that's a big part of the job. Like, for you guys that would like to get into that line of work, you want to be the next Arthur Staple, right? That's who you want to be. It's a big part of it where, you understand that there are relationships you have to develop, but as much as you need to show respect, they have to show you respect, and you have to gain their respect. You have to gain their understanding that you have a job to do, and you're not a cheerleader. You're not there to help the team win. Like the other funny story is, one time Eric Cairn said to me, the other reason why we're losing because your coverage is so negative. And I said, I'll tell you what, I'll write nothing but positive stuff for the rest of the season, and if you win the Stanley Cup, my name goes on it too. Like, if you're going to say that I'm causing losing, then you have to say that I'm affecting winning, right?
Oh, my God, yeah.
That means I'm helping the team, which means I should get credit. So it was a joke on my part, but it was just like a point of where we all stand in this thing. So, but yeah, like I said, I mean, I was in my 20s. I was a young kid, and it was because those guys, we were all the same age. that made it kind of interesting because,
Yeah.
when a whole bunch of guys are 20 years old and single, and we had fun, and we also got into battles, and it was a great learning experience.
That's crazy. So, I mean, that's like such a cool thing because now, Staples, approaching his 40s, 50s, so that's a different thing. But one thing that I think people would want to know, I'm not sure, you don't have to go into this, it's completely fine if you just want to, pass it. But what happened with, Gar Snow? I mean, is that something that you could tell us or not? I mean, it's fine if you don't, but we're all just kind of curious about that.
What do you mean? Like, why did they embargo me for a couple of weeks?
Yeah, why did they embargo you? The revolt. How'd that happen?
Well, mainly there was a couple of stories that got out that year, and that was the first year that Sterling was the coach. This is after Laviolette was gone. So
yeah,
when Peter was let go, there was a lot put on the players, and it became like, well, why would they let go of this coach? And Mike Milbury said it's because he felt Peter lost the locker room. So going into that season, they hire a guy like Steve Sterling, who was a nice guy, but he was the Bridgeport coach. I mean, it wasn't really like they went out and did a big coaching search. And so it was, on the players. And I liked Peter a lot, so it bothered me. And so I was a little harsher on the team that season and some of the things going on. And so I had heard about more of the issues that they were having in that locker room, and it was between some of the players and Yashin. And even Yashin would confide in me frustration. Like, one time, I'll tell you, he called me once from Russia, and this is during the off season, and he talked to me for an hour on the phone.
Wow.
And I mean, I was sometimes when somebody's like just talking to you, and you just you're walking around doing stuff while they're talking, you're like half listening. Like that's that point where like he's like saying stuff to me, and I'm like, I don't know where he's going with this, and he's like, I don't know what to do. I play hockey and I go home. I don't know what they want me to do. He just keeps going on, and I'm like, dude, I just want to quote. I want to write my story, and I'm done. I don't know what you want me to tell you. So he was telling me about an issue that he had with a couple of the players, and so I kept it in the back of my head. And then somebody told me about an incident on the bench during a game where somebody called him out on the bench, said something about him. So I wrote about it, which I probably shouldn't have done, but I did. And the player, I guess they found out who the player was. I didn't name the player, but they found out who the player was, and he ended up getting traded. And so the players are pissed now at me because they're like, why would you do that? So they felt like I revealed too much and it was wrong to do it. I later apologized. It's probably one of those things I should have left in the notebook, but I didn't. Mm-hmm. So they were mad, and they had every right to be mad. And we're all boys. We grew up from it. And by the end of the year, we had a laugh about it. And I mean, when Garth became the GM, he told me first. So it wasn't like we held any grudges because he was good enough to give me the story when that went down.
Yeah, you just gotta walk the line there. So that's great advice.
Like I said, you've got to make sure that they understand you have a job to do. Like if I could tell you guys anything, the secret sauce in this business, especially today with so many different levels of it now. It's not just that. When I first started, there was no Twitter, there was no internet. It was just your story in the paper, and that's it. And now it's like, I mean, everybody's got Twitter and everything else, so there's so much information out there. You can get lost in it. And the key is just to make sure that you are respectful, but you are also respected. And that's a hard thing to do because, you have to understand that I have to cultivate a relationship, so I need the players, but you'll learn quickly that they need you as well. And so that's something that, that's a give and take, and you learn. You make mistakes and you learn from it. There's a couple of times where you push a little too hard and you realize, all right, that was wrong. I shouldn't have done that. But you also know that, I mean, they're men, you're a man. You just handle it, you get through it, and you move on. So, like I'm telling you, it's show respect, but make sure you're also respected.
Yeah, so that's really cool. Just going on to the next question. You kind of answered this, but something that we talked about. I actually I write for Eyes on Isles. I'm not sure if you're aware of that site, and that's great that you're aware of that. So our editor wanted to know. You kind of just answered this. You've gone much more in depth than all of our other guests. This is great. I mean, you're telling us a lot, which is so cool. Being young and just hearing this, it's like a fantasy almost. But I just want to ask you, when you were working as the Islanders beat writer, you just told us some crazy things, but if you could pinpoint, thinking back, that one moment where you were like, oh my God, this is insane. Like, just whether it was something that you've always dreamed of, whether it was something you just were shocked of, whether you couldn't believe it. What was that craziest moment where you were just astonished?
Couple of them. Very first one is something I still have to this day, and that's the very first game that I covered. The first regular season game that I covered was in 1999, October 1999, and it was at Tampa. And they had Gordie Howe at the game to drop the puck for opening night. And so I'm in the press room before the game, just throwing some notes together. I'm sitting there. I get a tap on my shoulder. Turn around. It's Gordie Howe.
Wow.
And he's with somebody, and he's going around saying hi to everyone. So he just saw me sitting by myself. So he was like, hey, how you doing? And the guy with him said, do you want to take a picture with him? Now, again, this is flip phone era, right? This is not like, this is an iPhone era. So there's no selfie.
Mm-hmm.
So the guy has basically like a Minolta in his hand, and he just snaps a picture of me and, Mr. Hockey. And I have my game notes, and so I'm like, this is the first game I'm covering. This is my first NHL game that I'm covering as a beat writer. I was like, do you mind signing my game notes? So he signed it to Alan, best wishes, Gordie Howe, and number 9. And I saved it from that day, and I have it. It's still preserved in like this, like a folder that I have, this sealed folder. And it's just amazing. So we take this picture together, and now I'm 6'6", so I'm taller than he is. And he's sitting there next to me, so we're setting up for this picture, and he's like, you're a big fella. I'm like, yeah. And he goes, we used to do to guys like you? I'm like, what? He goes, cut him off at the knees. And he like gives me this glare. The guy takes the picture, and I'm like, holy crap, Gordie Howe wants to kick my ass. Like, it was like I'm like stunned, right? Then he smiles, he shakes my hand, and away he goes. And I never once said to myself, like, how am I getting this picture? You know what I mean? Like it's not like, again, no, tag me on it, on Instagram. Like, no, like, it's gone. I don't know where that picture went. I don't know anything about it. It's gone. So, but that was one of those moments where it's like, wow, like, this is pretty cool. I covered 4 Stanley Cup playoffs, finals, and I got to cover the Devils winning a couple of cups, which was fun to be at a Stanley Cup final and actually see the cup won and paraded around. And this is in Dallas at Reunion Arena when the Devils won the cup in 2000. And I'm down by the Zamboni entrance. Now, Reunion Arena is like an old, like a Coliseum type arena. It's before they built the new one down in Dallas. And so it's small. And so they had a basic, coming off the Zamboni entrance out to the locker rooms. So I'm hanging out down there as the players are taking the tour around the ice, and then they decide it's time to come off the ice. So Scott Stevens has the cup in his hands. He's coming off the ice. Now, there's a big crowd of people there. So I'm standing kind of like just to watch, and I'm trying to move aside. My story's already in. Like, it's, there's nothing else to do other than just get some quotes for the, following day's story. But he's trying to get through with the cup. Nobody's moving. So he literally uses it like a battering ram, like to clear space, and he crushes me with the cup. Like the side of the cup just drills me in the leg. But and then he just moves on. Like he just walks by, and I'm sitting there like that freaking hurt. And I realized like I just got hit with the Stanley Cup, like and away it goes. And I'm thinking to myself, like, how crazy is that? Like, it's so to me it wasn't as much like covering a game or moments I saw on the ice, even though, Scott Stevens hitting Eric Lindros. I mean, I was there for that game where he just basically knocked Lindros out. Seeing Game 6 in 2002 with Cairns beating the crap out of Shane Corson. Watching Steve Webb do what he did to Darcy Tucker. Me and Darcy Tucker going at it in an interview between games 5 and 6, where I was relentless with him because I just kept asking him, like, did you think it was a clean hit? And he's like, what did you think? I'm like, nobody cares what I think. What do you think? And this is like all the Toronto media's around, and I'm staring at him, and he's like, no, really, what do you think? I'm like, nobody cares what I think. He goes, I care what you think. I'm like, no, you don't. Just tell me what you think. We were just back and forth. So, like, those are the kind of fun moments, but, I mean, I watched a game with what's his name? It just escaped me. I remember sitting up in the press box, and I used to, because, again, I was by myself, I used to sit with scouts if they were up there. I would sit with GMs if they were there because I was by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it was Ken Dryden was up in the press box in Toronto.
That's cool.
And I went to do a story with him on Roberto Luongo, and I was just sitting there with him doing the story. And then when I was done with the interview, I said thank you. And the period hadn't ended yet, and so he's like, okay, no problem. And I just sat there because something happened in the game, so we were both watching it. And then I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to go back to my seat. He goes, you don't need to. You could stay here if you want. It was just him in the suite by himself. So I watched the rest of the game with Ken Dryden.
Wow.
You know, like it's stuff like that. Like to me, that just like blew my mind. You know, meeting Gordie Howe, the first time I met Wayne Gretzky. You know, being able to sit at an event with several of the Islander alumni from the 1980 Cup team, and feeling like I was part of the group. Like they were so cool. Like Lauren Henning, John Tonelli. You know, Butchie Goring, who I became really good friends with, Billy Smith, Chico Resch, you know, Gillies, obviously, Nystrom, my hero, you know, Bossy Trotz, all those guys, like being there. Denny Potvin, who we had a love-hate relationship where he knew how much I, you know, admired him, yet he also would be annoyed at me for things that I would write. So it was like so back and forth sometimes with him that it got to a point where we were like, one time I saw him in the hallway, and you know, in Florida, you know, hey, Denny, how you doing? And he'd give me an FU, and I looked at him like, Denny, I never know anymore. Do you hate me today or like me? What is it? Like we just start yelling at each other, and you know, like it's just like that's the stuff where it's surreal because you're thinking, you know, when I was 9 years old, like I lived and died with that team, and now, you know, here I am having beers with them. You know, like that's the kind of cool thing about the job, but the interactions, the battles, you know, the Milbury daily quotes, and never knowing what he's going to say, and covering a lockout where they lost the whole season. You know,
That's
which was
tough.
beyond anything I can even fathom. But covering that was just heartbreaking. You know, that's the stuff that really stands out to me. So I wish I could give you one, but I thought I'd maybe just give you a couple.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's funny because you said, you know, meeting all these players. I mean, I meet Rick DiPietro, who you work with, and we wanted to ask you about him later. And I feel like I'm meeting, you know, a role model, a celebrity. You know, my first jersey. So that's really funny that, you know, you work with him. Like that's my one player. You know, he's the most famous person I've met, so we want to ask you about him. But, you know, Harris has a question he wants to ask you, so I'm just going to go to him now.
Yes, this is Harris again, and you were the Islanders beat writer in an era where Charles Wang was there, and he was starting to develop the Lighthouse Project to build, you know, a new arena around and, you know, get rid of the old Nassau Coliseum. So I just want to know, like, how was it like? Were you able to get like good insight on like what Charles Wang was planning on doing or trying to do? And if you could tell me, you know, how it was like, you know, around Long Island and with the team and the fans, and how they felt about what he was going to try to do with the Coliseum.
I was 100% behind it because he brought me in when we were doing stories on all that stuff. When he really had the Lighthouse plan, original Lighthouse plan, and he gave us like an exclusive like look before they announced it. And I mean, you know, to his credit, you know, he looked at me and he was like, I want to know your opinion. Like, what do you think? So, you know, I looked at everything and I was blown away. And I just said, this has to happen. Like, this has to happen. And, I mean, the tower was a bit extreme, but you always do that. You always kind of aim high and then expect to have to give back a little. So the tower they probably easily could have taken out. Because the tower, it was, although it was a cool idea, I could see how some people in the suburbs wouldn't want, you know, this huge, you know, skyscraper in the middle of the Hempstead Plains. I can understand that. But it actually looked like it would have been really cool. But the building itself, what they wanted to do outside of the building, the whole setup that they had planned, it would have been amazing. And what people don't understand is that he was paying for it himself. Like all he wanted the county to do was just give him control of the land. That's it. Just give me control of the land. I'll build all this, and then you'll benefit from it, from all the retail and all the people that come in and everything else. And you know, these politicians. I mean, you guys are young, but you'll learn as you get older. You know, they speak out of both sides of their mouths, and they really are only about one thing, and that's putting money in their own pockets. And it's a shame. So his plan should have, like, we should be in that building right now. Like, that's how I feel. Like, we should be getting ready for a season in the Lighthouse Project arena it'd be done. John Tavares would already have his 8-year contract done. They would, there would be a lot more energy around this team instead of having to trek into Barclays for another 2 years, hoping that maybe a building gets built in Belmont.
Mm-hmm.
But but that's what's sad about this is that should have happened and it didn't. And I don't know how you recover from it, but I did see the plans. I talked with him many times about the plans for what they wanted to do with that area, and to me there was nothing you could tell me that would convince me that it was not the right thing to do. So it's I don't consider Charles Wong a failure as an owner. The other people failed him, and it really starts with the politicians in Nassau and a lot of stuff that's too boring for you guys to really want to focus on. But it's a shame that it didn't happen. Because I'm telling you, what I saw would have been unbelievable. It would have been incredible to see, and it would have been awesome to go to. Like just to be able to go to games in a place like that, to be outside of games, after games, afternoons of games, the tailgating that used to make Coliseum so special. You wouldn't have had the tailgate parking lot, but you would have had this outside area that in the winter you'd have ice outside. In the summers it would be, like I don't know if it's not a lake, but like a little, like water feature and just shops and restaurants and just a place to hang out. And it reminded me a lot of what Columbus did with their arena, with what I don't know if it's still called Nationwide Arena or not, but it was when I was there. And what they did to that warehouse district down there in Columbus, Ohio, amazing. Because it's great. On game nights, that place is hot. It's rocking. And it's so much fun to be around a place like that. And it's a shame it didn't happen. But I can tell you that, anybody that looks at Charles Wong's ownership and say it was a failure, you don't really know the details. The guy, what he wanted to do, people failed him.
Yeah, so that's a crazy thing to think of. I mean, you think of the quote state-of-the-art arena at Barclays, where there's obstructed seats. I personally love Barclays, but no one else does. But
how do you love Barclays? I need to know.
You want to know how I love Barclays?
Yeah.
So my writers are screaming at me because I am the only one. They're actually cursing me out right now because they hate Barclays so much, and I needed to throw that in. But here's why I love Barclays.
Okay.
So I live very far away from Nassau Coliseum, and it's a better drive to Barclays. So I like it.
All right, so you live closer to Barclays?
I live much closer to Barclays. It's a hour train ride, 30-minute subway to Barclays. It's like a 2.5-hour drive to Nassau. So I'm in Western Jersey. So that's why.
All right. Well, there you go. See, so it's specific to you. It's relative to you, and you love it for your own circumstance.
No, there's also this. There's also this. It's new. The bathrooms are like a hotel. The bathrooms are amazing. They're better than I've ever seen. The food's amazing, and the Coliseum was just, everyone said it's our dump. But why would you want our dump when you can get a nice arena that, by the way, I got lost in it once. I walked downstairs, and there's no escalator downstairs to get from the top level to the bottom level. So I got lost. I'm in the stairwell. I went on the wrong side. I open up the door thinking I'm on the bottom level. I'm in the middle suite level. John Ledecky, Clark Gillies, and who else was there? Bossy. It was Legends Night. It was the Columbus game on March 18th of last season. And it was the Legends Night where they were honoring all of them. And they're all there. So I couldn't ask for all their autographs. Thankfully, Josh Bailey, who I also love, threw me a puck. And I had a marker. And so I got Clark Gillies to sign it. He inscribed it. It was amazing. But, that wouldn't happen to the Coliseum, I don't think. So that's pretty cool. That's my view on it.
All right. You know what, though? Here's what I'll give you. You're right on a couple of accounts. Number one, yes, that building is way better than the dump that was known as the Coliseum. And I spent 8 years of my life in that building. Like, when it was empty, late after games, I used to climb up in the catwalks up there. A lot of people don't know this, but right out of college, one of my first jobs, I was actually an intern for the Islanders. And I worked game nights. And so I was at Bob Nystrom night when they retired as number 23, and I was actually literally on the catwalk above by the arena, by the banners that night, watching the ceremony. And I just used to explore the building just by myself, like walk around, just exploring. And I one time walked all the way across to where and
that's so
I just
cool.
wanted to touch the Stanley
Oh
Cup
my
banner,
God.
so I did. I just like walked out, like no one was there, touched the banner. Like I'm shaking, I'm nervous. I'm like, Jesus, if I fall, like what kind of like?
You die.
What are they gonna think? Like Islanders beat writer falls to his death, you know? Like what is this? But I had to do it, you know. Like I needed to just touch this banner. So, you know, like that building, you know, has always been special to me. But I've also seen it where we had an umbrella open in the press box because it was raining outside. Now remember, this is a building that has a roof on it, but it was raining inside as well. So this place, I used to walk down and see, you know, in the back alley, back way up in the press box, you know, there were rats the size of raccoons up there.
Oh my God!
I mean, it just, you know, it was just an old, and it needed to be replaced. So it was time. So yes, Barclays is cleaner, it's newer, it's nicer. It's not home.
Yeah.
It's temporary, and that's how it has to be. It just has to be understood as temporary. And as long as you understand, look, this is not going to be it forever. It's just temporary. You just kind of deal with it. And so you deal with some of the seats and everything else, and, you know, you live with it. But, I mean, location-wise, it's a tough spot. It's a real tough spot to get to for most of the fans who are from Long Island. But, and that'll lead me into this, like, I hate the fact that they're even playing one game in the whatever you want to call it, I call it basically it's flip my house. I mean, they just took the Coliseum, put some new tile, wrapped the slinky around it, and said, here, it's brand new now. No, it's not. It's the same building. I hate the fact that they're even playing a preseason game in there. I hate it because it's just, you know, it was time to move. They just have to get themselves a new building somewhere else.
Yeah. So that's they are bringing the Centennial Fan Arena during the game, so that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. I've always wanted to do that. I wish I can go to the Coliseum game, but it's too far. But I'm gonna come to Jared. I'm gonna trust him to ask the question that he is typing to ask. Hopefully, it's not about Barclays, because that would just I'd get wrecked in that argument. But I'm coming to Jared now. What's your question, man?
First thing, I just want to say I agree with a lot of things that you said, Mr. Hahn, about the Coliseum. But, you know, and it's amazing, the fact that you touched the banner, I just absolutely love that. I think that's incredible just to think about, and I wish I could do that.
I've never told anybody that. Like, no one knows that story. Like, no one.
Wow.
I did that when I was all by myself in the press box typing a story after practice. Everybody had already gone, and I was the only one in the building. Like, I felt like I was the only one in the building. And I just thought to myself, I'm never going to be able to do it unless I do it now. And so I saw the ladder that led up to the catwalk, and I'm like, screw it. I just did it just to think, you know, like, again, to say to myself, at least I could say I touched one of those damn banners.
That's so cool.
Yeah, like I wanted to say, like, I mean, it just got, like, David, to respond to what you said, I agree. Barclays is just a phenomenal facility, and it's gorgeous. One of the things that I think about whenever I think about the Islanders is our history, and the fact that there's been so many players that have gone through the Islanders organization, and the amazing players that played in the Coliseum. I mean, for example, you have all those Stanley Cup greats, and then, you know, you like present day, and that brings me actually to my question. You know, you have all these good players, like a former All-Star goaltender who you work with, Rick DiPietro. What's it like working with a very colorful man like DiPietro? He's always very nice when we see him at games, and seems like a great guy to work with, and we all look up to him. So I just want to know, what is it like to work with a guy like that?
Well, it's like, for me, it's like I'm working with my little brother. Like that's how it just. We've always had that relationship, and I can't explain why. It just became that way, and I guess the only way to explain it is to I'll tell you a couple of stories. So the first one is the first time we met, and that's at the 2000 draft. And I found out the night before that they were going to trade Luongo and draft him. And I'm like, I remember saying to the guy who told me, are you guys out of your mind? Like, what do you, like, it's Roberto Luongo. And I love Louis. Like we had a good relationship. You know, I got to know him really well. I got to know his agent really well. And I felt like, you know, Roberto's going to be an Islanders goalie for the next 10 years. Like, he's so good, and he was so comfortable, and he had a really good debut that year in '99. So when I found out that's what they were doing, like, are you guys nuts? Like, that's the last thing you need as a goalie. but they were doing it. And so, again, you know, you kind of already have it in your head, like, you know, I'm not gonna like this guy. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want this. You know, and so I'm there at the draft. They make the pick, and so what they do is the players drafted. Now again, it's so much different now. The draft is a big show. The NHL was one of the first. They did a really nice show with their drafts. But again, this is pre-social media. This is pre-internet. This is just you're writing for print, and then there's the TV cameras, and it wasn't anybody but it was ESPN and TSN, right? That was up there, and that was it. And this draft was in Calgary. This was in Calgary. This draft. So, the print media waits after he does his TV stuff. So he's doing his TV stuff as the number one pick. Now there's a table where there's a press conference, and that's where everybody, you know, national media, and then now everybody's back because they want to see who's the second pick, third pick, and so on. And I think it was, it was Gabrick, it was Heatley. It was a pretty good draft. So now it's because, okay, now the local media gets to talk to the player. So there's a round table in a conference room where all the beat writers are supposed to sit and wait for him. I was the only one there. So it's this huge round table. In comes Rick, hair slicked back, you know, looking all pretty, carrying his jersey, the PR guy. So it's me and him. He walks up to the table, and he looks at me, and he goes, "Is this it?" And I look at him like, wise ass, is this it? Right? Like I'm like so annoyed. I'm like, you know, I'm still bothered by Luongo. I had just called Roberto, like, you know, like telling him, like, dude, you know, I thought you'd be here forever. We're going back and forth. And he goes, "Is this it?" And I'm like, "Is this it?" I'm like, "I'm all you need." Like that was my response to him, right? Like just like kind of combative.
Oh my god.
And he looks at me. He's like, "Oh, I like this guy." Like, you know, it just became that give and take. Like, you know, basically, F you, no, F you. You know, like we were doing that. And from there it just took off. Like, saw him in training camp, you know, already, you know, he's making fun of me. I'm taking shots at him. We're laughing. Anytime I walked past when they were training, he would, you know, make jokes about my physique, you know, like stuff like that. Like we would just basically it was open season, and I kind of liked that. I liked that he was punchy like that. And then the year he thought he was going to make the team, because his year in Chicago as a rookie, they had him in the International Hockey League in Chicago, and it was a disaster. And you know, and I kind of felt bad for what he went through up there. And then the next year, he's in training camp and he's ready to make the team. And he had played a little bit at the end of the season, and then they sent him back down because of a contract thing where if he played X amount of games, he would have gotten a bonus. Mm-hmm. So they wouldn't let him get to the game total to get his bonus, so he was mad. And so I wrote the story about it, and Milbury was mad at me for writing that story, but I think Rick appreciated the fact that I took up for him on that one. So I see him in training camp the next year. This is 01 now, and he's fired up, ready to go. And then they pick up Osgood on waivers. And so Rick comes over to me after the first preseason game, and Osgood plays. Osgood was playing out of his mind. And he comes up, he's like, "So, how did he play?" I'm like, "Dude, he's really good." I'm like, "He's a Stanley Cup goalie. He's awesome." And he goes, "Right that I'm playing well too, huh?" Like, you know what I mean? Like, he had this look on his face, like, help me out. So we, like, when he got sent to Bridgeport, we stayed in touch, and, you know, he did really well that year. They went to the Calder Cup Finals. And it just became a thing. Like, I remember this, and I don't know if you guys can use this or not, but I walked into a locker room one time. It was quiet. And he's sitting there, and he sees me, and Peter Boddy from the Daily News was with me. And he turns around, and it's quiet early morning locker room. He goes, "What's up, my bitches?" Like that. And, like, we're looking at him like, oh, my God. Like, like, it's just, I couldn't help but like him. You know what I mean? I couldn't help but like him. And, you know, even after I left the beat and I started doing the Knicks, you know, we would stay in touch. I would check in on him. I would give him, you know, say stuff like when Greg Logan used to criticize him for at Newsday, I would always tease him about it. And, you know, we just, you know, we stayed in touch. And when the radio thing, you know, when I was doing radio, and he would listen, because he's a big sports buff, and he would text me, if he was listening, he would text of things that I was saying or debating me in text. And so I saw him at a golf outing, and I'm like, dude, you should do this. Like, you should jump in and do radio. You'd be good at it. And he's like, I don't know. So I just said, just come. It was in the summer. I'm like, just come in tomorrow night. Just come in the studio, and let's see how it goes. And 3 hours went by like in a blink. And he was like, that's it? It's over? That's it? I'm like, yeah, no, we're done. The show's over. And I'm like, you want to go back tomorrow? He's like, you think I can? I'm like, I'd come back until they tell you to stop. And they'd never told him to stop. He just kept coming back. So, like I said, it's more like it's like your little brother. You know, we've had fights, we've had arguments, but I know exactly I know exactly what buttons to push with him. We have a great time. We've had a million laughs, and what you hear on the air is who he really is. That's his personality. That's not a character. That's not an act. That's who he really is, and that's what I think what's so good about it. It's genuine.
Yeah,
that's his personality.
I've met him after I was sitting outside of the Newark, the Devils Arena, and I'm with a friend who I live in Western New Jersey. No one likes hockey, so I'm with my friend who I have 2 kids who like hockey in my school, 2 in a school of 1,600. So I'm with one of my friends who doesn't. I treated him to the ticket. He came along for the ride, and we're sitting outside, and we're like, dude, I want to wait outside the media room. And he's like, no, we got to hit the train. I'm like, we'll take the next train. I just want to sit outside the media room, and I just want to wait here. And I don't know why, but I just wanted to because, I didn't want to make the train. I don't know. I felt safe in Newark, which I was lucky. I didn't get mugged. But I'm just sitting there, and Rick and DiPietro walks out. First of all, he was probably, I don't know if you can comment on this, he might have been the only person I saw who drove himself. It was such a weird thing because he got to a car in the parking lot, and it looked like he drove when everyone else was getting rides. So Butch Goring came out, and all these people came out. They all had cars waiting for them. He drove himself, but I got.
Well, was this last season?
This was last season. It was.
Yeah. I can explain why. He came straight from the show.
Oh, really? That's funny.
He did the radio show. He was probably done, and so then you can't go home. You can't go back to Long Island and go to Newark. So he killed some time in the city and then drove to Newark and then drove himself home. That's why. Well,
that's some behind the scenes info. Yeah. So he got in his car, and
I didn't. Man.
Yeah, that's good. Look at me. I'm already getting the answers out of everyone. Look at me. So that was really cool. I introduced myself to him. He said that was some game, and then I didn't ask him for an autograph or a picture. I don't know why. He just was like, whenever I see a famous person, I always ask for an autograph or a picture. But there was just something out of him that he was such a personal person that I forgot to ask him. I was like, he was so friendly that it was almost like I was talking to my friend who was sitting next to me and not Rick DiPietro. And I forgot to ask him for a picture, 30-second conversation, forgot to ask him. I asked
Butch Goring. I'm sure that's not going to be a problem. You'll see him at Barclays this year. I'm sure you'll be able to.
Yeah, I've already gotten pictures with him, but I don't know. I like keeping a tab. But it was really funny. He's the nicest guy, and working with him must be such a treat. He's such a good, a nice person on air, and he's really.
Yeah, it's been like I said, it's been fun. It's wild. It's we laugh. I mean, if you've ever heard the show, like which is. One joke after another, you get away with nothing. Like it's total locker room stuff. It's really it's a lot of fun. It's actually that's how it is. I mean that's how it is when Chris Candy's the same way. Mm-hmm. You're a reporter, you go into a locker room, and that's what you're going to deal with. You're going to deal with there'll be some wise ass answers, there'll be some serious answers, there'll be there's cracks on what you look like and your wardrobe and. That stuff, and then there's give and take, and you just learn to enjoy it, and that's a window into really what it's like, because there's some members of the media, I'll be honest with you, that don't get that,
mm-hmm.
They take themselves so seriously, they don't really know how to interact with players, and, it's really awkward, but if you understand that it's more relationship building, like I said at the very beginning of the conversation.
Yeah, you gotta know how to talk.
That, and you respect and then be respected, everything else just kind of falls into place, and it becomes less of a job and more of a passion.
Yeah, it definitely seems like you have a passion for it. That's obviously apparent. The experiences that you have, have spanned a lifetime. It's so cool. So I think we have I have just one more question, and we want to talk about DPHO and all these experiences all night, but I mean, what are we at? We're at 49 minutes, which is our longest interview ever. It felt like 5 minutes, but this is pretty crazy. Thank you. So,
break records. Let's do it.
yeah, you want to break the record? It's funny because I'm distracted because we're on a Skype call, as I told you earlier, and Harris and Jared are putting pictures of them in DPHO up to the camera. So that's really funny. Distracting, but it's funny.
You know what I need to know, though? I need to know if Jared or Harris has fish sticks.
Do you guys have
if you
fish
don't have fish sticks, then I don't know. How could you even possibly do a podcast about the Islanders?
Do you guys have fish sticks?
Who has fish sticks?
I don't have physical fish sticks, but I got a fish stick, Gorton's Fisherman Islander logo hanging up in my room. If that's a thing, maybe.
No, you're out. You're already out. You've already lost.
Bye, Harris.
Lost the game by even bringing that one up. That is no. So none of you have the book Fish Sticks?
No.
This is crushing. All right, so here we already have homework. You have an assignment.
Okay.
I don't even know where you can find it anymore because it hasn't been in publication in about 10 years. But you have to now find that book and read it because I wrote it with Peter Body, and it's all about those years. It's basically a history of the franchise up until like the 2004 season, right before the lockout, and all the madness that ensued. And there's some stories in there that, I mean, you're going to be hysterical laughing. You'll probably be like crying at times, and you'll be outraged as well. But if you're an Islanders fan and you don't have that book, then no, that's your catch you up. That book catches you up. That's the one. That's the book you give like to guys like in your generation, because you guys know about the history from banners and grainy photos. But that book tells you the stories and the behind the scenes. All the stuff that I'm telling you on this, like that times 10 is in the book.
Wow.
So you got to find that book. That's your assignment. You got to find that book, and you also got to make sure you've seen Big Shot, the 30 for 30.
We have seen that.
I've seen Big Shot.
We have seen that.
That's all right. So somebody owns the DVD of Big Shot? Anyone?
Well, I mean, we have Netflix.
You have Netflix. All right, so it's on Netflix.
Yeah.
Well, that means you own it. Technically, you own it. So you've seen it.
Yes, we have seen that.
Okay.
That's an
All
interesting
right, there you go.
I
I mean, I got to be honest, it's some of my best work.
Really? Yeah, okay.
I'm kidding. But no, like, those are the things that I think are valuable because, I always feel like if you understand the history of a franchise, you have a better understanding of why things are happening. And today, like, I do this with the Jets. Like, I do this with the Knicks a lot. It's the same kind of thing. Like, why are these franchises like this? Why are the Yankees like the Yankees? Just do your history, and you'll know. So there's so much in Fish Sticks that will explain everything that's even happening right now.
Wow.
It will explain. You'll be like, oh, now I get it.
Yeah. So.
It'll give you this historical reference that is way better than anything you learn in school.
Yeah. I mean, I wish we could learn that. I actually did. I wanted to do an Islanders book for my summer reading, and if I remember, I did look at this book, and I think it was like $35 or something. So I didn't buy it. It was it was expensive. I just found it on Barnes and Noble.
I just found it on Amazon, and it happens to be like the lowest price is $30.
Yeah, see,
I'm sold from.
You're making a lot of money.
It's collector's item.
Version on Amazon, which is
I'm
pretty
sure you could probably find a used version, or maybe even go to a library.
A library? Whoa.
Now, there's a lot of really bad language in it, so it might not be in a library.
Oh, we're fine. You want to hear bad language? I hate to rat out Jared, but I'm going to right now because you will be so mad at him. Me and Harris know what, Harris and I, we've watched the 30 for 30. Jared doesn't even know what 30 for 30 is.
No, I know what 30 for 30 is. I've never seen that episode.
Okay. He just, we have the Skype chat on the side. He said, oh my God, what's the 30 for 30? And then we called him an idiot.
I've watched many 30 for 30s. I've never seen
more assignments for you. Now you've got it. Kevin Connolly produced it. I mean, he narrated and produced it. It's really good.
Wow.
And again, it also gives you some history of the franchise, but not much. But then the whole John Spano story, which is, that the whole thing is outrageous. But again, Fish Sticks it catches you up. It gives you everything you want. I also wrote Birth of the Dynasty, which is about the 1980 Stanley Cup year. And the build up to that, how they almost blew that team up before they won, and a lot of behind the scenes from that very first Stanley Cup, a franchise that was 9 years old. So, that's another good one too. And I'm not getting commission on these books anymore, so it's not like I'm trying to make money off you boys. I'm just trying to help you, get some historical reference.
Yeah, I actually just looked it up on Amazon specifically, and it's actually not $30. So everyone listening to this, look up Fish Sticks, The Fall and Rise of the New York Islanders, and it's $12.75 on Amazon. Everyone should go and read it. I'm actually going to buy a copy right after we get off of this call.
Wow.
Yes.
Well,
that one for sure. In fact, I just did an updated epilogue of that book that I think they're going to re-release sometime in the fall.
Ooh, that's cool.
But you're not missing much. It's just basically the epilogue is just catching you up from what's happened over the last 10 years. So you guys have lived all that. You don't need it.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, we post these podcasts on SoundCloud, and we have the analytics, and usually, when we had Staple on, we had Graziano on, we actually got 1,000 on the Staple interview, but you have the analytics of every 10 minutes how many viewers you have, and you start off with 1,000, you go down to 900, and by the time you're at 30 minutes, you're at 200 or 100, and I have a feeling this one's going to be a straight line, because this has been pure. I mean, this is amazing.
Well, I don't know, because Stapes probably gave you some trade rumors. He probably told you some stuff going on with the current roster. I mean, he didn't ask me anything about the current team. I spent some time with Doug.
We got carried away. I
skated with some of the guys the last couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, we were going to ask about that, but we have a questions list of 10 questions. We got to 4, so I have it printed out right now. We have a little off topic. What was it like to report the LeBron James rumor being first? We have what was it like to be a fantasy camp? We have all that, but I mean.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you in 10 seconds, the LeBron James thing, I didn't sleep a wink that night because the last call I got that night, because I put that up, I think, around 11 o'clock, and the last call I got was one of his guys threatening me saying, he always changes his mind. And I was like, oh, crap.
Oh, my God.
And then I was like, well, good. Maybe he'll change his mind and come to New York, and then it's a win-win anyway. And it ended up being where obviously it stayed accurate, and he ended up going to Miami. So that I didn't sleep a wink that night. I was just bleary-eyed at the press conference, and then when it happened, I was like, oh, thank God. Yeah. Even though I was really disappointed that he wasn't coming to New York. And I actually had Knicks fans calling me out, telling me that they hated me, and they would never follow me again on Twitter because, of me reporting something like that, which I don't know why you would feel that I would make that up just to make you feel bad. So that's that.
Yeah, but
as far as the fantasy camp goes, it was both equal parts embarrassing and yet so much fun. Catching up with guys I covered. Mark Parrish was a guy I was really close with, and it's great to see him and Sean Bates and guys like Karen, saw Snowy a little bit. Some of the legends that were there. Billy Smith was literally on the ice. He played defense, and I swear in one of the scrimmages.
Yeah, I watched that clip. The referee.
Quickly,
yeah.
And then he said, "Play on, play on." He flipped out on the official. Lost it, screaming at him. It was so funny to see him get all fired up, yelling at the referee. It was great.
Yeah, I watched that.
I did talk. Doug Wade, I'm telling you right now, I was so impressed with him, not during the fantasy camp stuff, but he did a chalk talk, and he's explaining some of the stuff that he's trying to do, and the way he was interacting, the way he was describing the system that they want to play and how they want to play, I was blown away by just his ability to not just break the game down and discuss it, but is also just how comfortable he was in front of a room, how he kept it light, so you were engaged. You weren't bored to tears. And I've sat in on many, chalk talk situations with coaches, and there's some that just bore you to tears. Oh, yeah. There's others that you can just tell they don't really know what they're talking about. And then there's Doug Wade. I'm really high on Doug Wade. I think they've got themselves a great hire, and I'm just dying to see what he does now with this team, especially with the addition of Everley and obviously getting JT signed up and getting him comfortable and getting guys healthy. Could be a really interesting year. I think the power play is going to be a lot better. So I'm pretty damn excited about it. I'm telling you. Yeah,
I mean, we have all this stuff. We wanted to ask you about some of the trades, but I think the followers, they could hear that, us talking about it. We do live streams. They could hear that. I mean, this is where the interest is. This was so cool. So I think, we're at an hour. To all of our listeners who stayed through this, as I'm sure many more did than usual, thank you so much for listening. It was an amazing talk with an amazing mentor, an amazing person who, I mean, has some amazing stories to tell. So hopefully you guys were intrigued by this, and hopefully you guys stay tuned for some more interviews. We have some players lined up. We are in contact with 2 players right now, and we're excited to premiere those podcast episodes in a few weeks. So with that, guys, I'm David. I'm here with Jared and Harris and Alan Hahn, and I just want to thank him. And I want to thank everyone for listening to a great episode. So thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to the Drive for 5 podcast. And as always, let's go Islanders!